Well, welcome back, everyone, to our podcast series, Don't Stress. God is ready to talk when you are. I am your host, Sharai Adams, and today we are diving into Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Expect the Unexpected. This chapter challenges us to embrace the surprises of life, finding God's voice in the midst of the unexpected moments. Joining me again is the author herself, Quiana L. Gibson, who shares not just her insights, but also her personal stories that illuminate the path that we often overlook. So, Quiana, it's our pleasure again to have you here. How are you today?
I'm great. Yourself?
Good. You look amazing.
Oh, you too.
I love the green.
Green. Must have been a color.
Favorite color. So I want to go jump right into reflecting on the family observations in your book. So we've all heard it before. Okay, watch what you do, watch what you say, because your kids are watching. They're definitely listening, but we don't always talk about how that should also apply to our faith. Our children are watching. They're watching the way that we pray. They're watching the way that we, seek God. They're watching the way that we respond in difficult moments. Our children are paying attention, and it shapes how they view faith for themselves. Quiana, in your book, you share 3 powerful moments when your children caught you at prayer at a different stage of their lives. When you think back now, how do those moments sit with you? And looking at your children today, what do you think they took away from witnessing you during those moments in their lives?
As far as what they took away, I guess it would be similar to the experience I had with my own mother. I'm praying and I'm believing that that's the situation.
Yeah.
It is, we have a responsibility to show God in his purest form, untainted by our influence.
Yeah.
The best way to say that is to just be as transparent as possible. I could act one way while I'm at church, or I could act another way while I'm at home. I could act another way when I'm at the grocery store. In the last episode, I mentioned about the spinning out the Tasmanian devil opportunities, right? That happened in my early stages, especially as being a mother. Seeing what I am grateful for is not only did they see those moments of the explosion, but they also saw the moments of me taking the time to build a relationship with God. So, obviously my children are still growing and still evolving in their own walk with God, and they have their own individual journeys. But I think we have to show that there's more to being a parent than just what you see on TV. You know what I mean? We watch the movies, we watch Disney Channel, my son's favorite movies growing up were those High School Musicals. And, you've got parents who are perfect or imperfect,
right.
You know what I mean? And you see such extremes. You either see a parent who is the image of perfection, or the one who is struggling, right? And I think that being a parent, it's important for us to be authentic,
absolutely
transparent. That's one of the biggest things I learned from my parents was, even though they never gave this picture of being perfect. If we had if there was something, excuse me, I want to cough.
Get it out. Water break.
I was trying to hold it. Seeing my parents and seeing when things were not perfect, I also saw them come back and get it right, and have the conversation with us as kids. So me bringing up those times in the book where it was an interruption in my schedule.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was an interruption in, my plan, which we all know are perfect plans that we love to have every day. But that plan of, I got my candles going and I got my music playing and I got my Bible out, and then here comes a child coming in, and seeing a kid at 5 or 6 years old, and then seeing them at 16, 17, and still seeing their mother practice the same kind of routine, but even have it be a little bit different. I think it's huge. I don't take it for granted having children, and having that responsibility. And also I don't take it for granted, or I don't take it lightly, that it's my job to show them. You know, it's my job to show them that I'm not perfect and I can still have a relationship with God, and in them seeing me in all my imperfections, still know that, you know, 15 years later that mommy's still at it. You know what I mean? And hopefully they're taking something away. I was even talking to my niece daughter, which is my niece, and she was talking about, she mentioned to me, she was reading the book, and she's like, oh, she was like, Auntie Quiana, I remember interrupting you too.
That was me too.
Right. She's like, that was me too. And in my brain, I'm going, it wasn't even, obviously I put her in other parts of the book, but I didn't bring that part up. And she was like, I remember that. I remember going in there, and I needed to get my, you know, my brush or whatever it is from out of the salon / studio, and just, you know, not even thinking that, oh my gosh, and now she's a mother. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now, and she's seeing the same comparison. So I think it's huge, you know, especially once you become a parent.
Absolutely.
You know, seeing those examples. My examples of my dad praying was, you know, he would be walking the floors, or he'd get up, crack of dawn in the morning, going in, lift your head up and putting a little oil on your forehead, a little cross. So everybody has their own communication, but I think it's important for us to show it.
I think that's great. It's almost like you set them up for success in their faith walk, because they don't have to undo what a lot of us have had to do. Yes. Yeah. Because it didn't look like what tradition said it had to look like. Yeah. That's so freeing. That's awesome. Yeah. But I do want to be real. Parenting will test every ounce of patience.
All of it.
That we have. And there's this idea that as moms, we're supposed to have this unlimited tolerance. But the reality is life is happening, like you said. So it's great that your children were able to see that, that it doesn't have to have a structured time or a structured setting for me to connect with my Heavenly Father, that He's a part of our day-to-day interactions. Like you mentioned in the first episode, the house gets messy. You know, people don't pick up after themselves. And before we know it, like you said here on page 19, matter of fact, let's go on over there. Because we're going to quote you. You said, you turned to the Tasmanian devil mode. Yes. And you started spinning through the house yelling, I am not the maid. No, that sounds like my everyday challenge. Yeah. Okay. And I love that you kept it real in the book, because many of us, we have these moments, but we don't always talk about them. Like you said, it's not the picture perfect image that we see on TV, and we feel like we need to hide it if it doesn't look like that. But it's so freeing. So thank you for being transparent with that. So Quiana, you described how being saturated in the word helped you shift from reacting in frustration to responding with more peace. Yes. But that's not always easy when the emotions are high or when life feels chaotic. What was that process like for you? How did you get from constantly feeling triggered to learning how to manage those emotions in a way that didn't feel like you were suppressing them?
The suppressing lasted a long time. The suppressing lasted a long time. And the suppressing, I think we do that as women. Yeah. You know, we will kind of like, even though, you know, there's this concept of, you know, we are overly emotional or whatever, if they had any idea of all the emotions that were probably happening
a day
in the day, that's just spillover. But when you're a mom, wife, partner, whatever, it's almost like you're managing all of the household emotions. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to, your children, depending on what age they are, you know what I mean, are sometimes in control. Sometimes they're having straight up tantrums. You're trying not to I remember this, my youngest son, screaming. He would not stop screaming. He not stop crying. And I remember calling my husband. I'm like, I don't know what's wrong. Yeah. Something must be wrong. He's just crying uncontrolled. And you talk about the trigger. Yeah. I was like, so, I don't know. I was just like in a place of torment because I couldn't soothe your own child. And you're supposed to be able to do that as a parent, you know, especially as a mother. You're supposed to come in and just your presence.
That's your baby.
Right. It's supposed to,
right.
Somehow you're supposed to, and I just could not do it. And that was a hard one. It took me a while to bounce back from that.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking you should be able to, because again, back to the picture you see, even though we're saying what images are we showing our children, those are the same images we watch, the Cosby Show, and Claire Huxtable wasn't ever, she had it together. Right, she had it together, and if she went off, it was like scripted for real, right? She knew everything to say, and it would always seem to be so eloquent, even when she was, going off on her children. But it didn't work that way, and I think that the suppressing of the emotions that happened for me for a long time was something that once I started having more intimacy with God and a more real conversation with God, then that is when I wasn't triggered as often. Even the overstimulation that can happen as a mom and as a business owner, and you have to be on for your clients and on for your students and on for your kids and on for your husband and on for the people at church and on, and you can never turn off the switch.
That's real.
It's a real thing. You know what I mean? It's a real thing. So that suppressing of it, and once you get past that point, once you are no longer afraid of the trigger, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because I think for a while we're just so afraid of it that you're like, I don't want to go there.
I'm out of control.
Right. So like if I just went around the house and I'm like, I'm not the maid. I'm the one looking like the crazy person.
Right.
I'm the one looking like, what's wrong with her? Mommy's out of control. What is the problem? And now that's bleeding into my kids and what they're experiencing. So then you start to dumb it down or quiet it down, but then once God starts peeling away like the layers, he starts dealing with all the things and the emotions that you might be feeling. I'm not afraid of it.
And it looks different.
And now I respond differently.
That's a good point. So right there, to the moms who are out there who may be in that Tasmanian devil stage right now,
whatever it is.
What advice?
You can call her whatever you like, because I know that's what mine is. She ain't been out for a while. Sometimes the hormones come on, but it's fine. She'll be all right.
She'll be all right. What advice would you give these moms? One thing that they can start doing today to begin shifting from reacting to responding.
Ooh, shifting from reacting to responding is think first.
As easy as that sounds.
Think first. You don't have to say the first thing you're thinking. You do not have to say. I remember my dad told me that a long time ago. My dad, my pastor, he was like, whatever the first thing you was going to say, don't say that. Because my first response is always not going to be the right one. It's just not. And it's going to be blow out every light in the room, tear up whatever self-esteem you had is out the window. Okay. Can't be taking lives out. And that's also a responsibility. So I would say try to think first. Try to try as silly as this might sound, try just being quiet.
That's a skill.
Because I can argue my way out of anything and hold it. Sometimes I laugh with my husband and I'd be like, I'm gonna take it to the grave, right? Whatever. I was right. It's fine. I'm not right. You're not winning it, right? But it's sometimes you just need to not say anything in those moments. And sometimes when you're quiet, then the Holy Spirit can start to speak. And I could fill in a whole lot of words. I could make up stuff. I can end up making the situation 10 times worse. 10 times worse. I'd rather just sometimes don't say anything. You can write things down. You can journal. You can open up your notes app. And if you wanted to fuss somebody out or you needed to just get it out, get in there. Right. I'm gonna get in on yours. Right. Okay. Pull your phone out, whatever it is. have that person in your life that you can go to and have that conversation with, to be able to let out, take a minute, go in the bathroom, talk to God about it. Like they know I'm not the maid.
Right. So we have a responsibility.
We have a responsibility. We do have a responsibility. And the thing about having children and having people in your life, whether they're your children or your coworkers, Lord, or whoever else at the shop right in the line who's about to get it because I only have 5 minutes to grab this.
Right.
And now you want to, I don't know, buy lotto tickets or whatever it is. Just nonsense. Anybody can get it. Yes. Oh. Anyone can get it. And it's not, but we have a responsibility. Not if my light's supposed to be shining.
That's a big part.
Not if my light's supposed to be shining. So that learning to respond versus react is a big one. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's really good. I know that's something I have to continue to practice. That's good. One of the most powerful things about your story is the way God reassures you, even in the midst of chaos. There's a moment in your book where your youngest son, like you said, had interrupted your worship, and instead of frustration, you experience this divine confirmation when God simply says, I'm still here. And that hit me because when life gets overwhelming, it's so easy to feel like God is distant when he's been there the whole time. It's just that we have to shift ourselves in a position to be able to hear him. And it's very simple. I know for me, when I'm stressed and I'm burdened, it almost feels like I'm trying to handle everything on my own. Like, don't worry about that, God. I got that. And I take it off his shoulders and I put it on mine. And when I do that, it feels like it creates a wedge in between me and God. How do you break those bad habits? For feeling like I got to take control and I can do it. How do we stay connected when everything around us wants us to disconnect? The kid is interrupting me. You know what? Forget it. Life is just happening. Because in that moment, it feels easier to just lean on what we know instead of fully surrendering in that moment. Help us out in that area.
I think we kind of talked a little bit about it, but when you lean into the interruption, you're leaning into, if you're a visual person, imagine like leaning into his arms. Like you're literally like, especially when you don't have the necessary support in that moment, because if it is just you in that moment and you can't be like, Mom, can you come help me with this, or a sister or whoever else, or a husband, partner, whatever it is, if you don't have that in that moment, you can lean into, I don't want to say lean into the chaos, because that's what it can feel like, but leaning into, instead of fighting the current, right? So you know how when you're fighting, you got salmon who swim upstream, and they're fighting to get up that way. Sometimes, and you're going against the current. Sometimes you just got to be like, let me just, I'm just gonna go with the current for the moment. And what I find is that oftentimes the fighting, like needing to be in control, you're wasting all of this energy. You're wasting all of these resources. And God didn't even tell you to go upstream in the first place. He's like, listen.
Running fast, going nowhere.
Like running fast, going absolutely nowhere. You could be on a raft, drifting, right? You're not even supposed to be going up north. Like that's not even your destination.
Right.
Like that's not even where we're going. Yeah. But we get so in tunnel vision, like, oh, well, I got this, I've got this plan. And that goes back to the same thing. Here we go all over again. Like, I got to be the one in control. I got this, Daddy. I got this, another thing. And you put on another bag that you're going to carry. Call yourself the bag lady. Carrying all this baggage, emotional, whatever other baggage that it is. Sometimes we just need to like, hold on. Let me just lean into this. Let me go ahead. I know this is an unexpected moment. If the kid is having a meltdown, then I'm just going to stop everything else. And that statement that I'm still here is like him taking you now into his embrace. Because it's like, I didn't forget about you. I know you needed me in this moment, but I also know that this needed you in this moment. So now I still got you. Like the conversation is still here. We can pick up exactly where we left off, like we are now, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of the visual of like when you're on the phone and say we're talking and the kids interrupt. It's like, hold on, but I know you're still there.
Yep.
Let me handle this real quick and let me get back to the conversation.
Exactly.
He's still there.
Still there. That's why the name of the book is Don't Stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we get so caught up. We get so stressed out because there's so much going on. And I mean, let's talk about it for just a minute. Because like I talked about going upstream, if I'm going to go upstream and daddy never told me to go upstream in the first place, that was not the destination. That means I created this whole other detour, which means I picked up more stuff. So sometimes the chaos that we're in is chaos that we're creating. And if I'm creating this chaos because, I don't know, I got this perfect image of this destination that I'm trying to reach, that's delusional. Because now I'm making it even more difficult for me. Sometimes you got to learn how to use that N word.
Yes, you taught me that.
Okay,
because I filled up all the minutes in my day with
every
something.
minute, every possible minute, and taking that time for yourself is fine. And if nothing else, for the sake of your business, for the sake of your relationships, for the sake of your children, for the sake of your ministry, for the sake of whatever it is, if you don't have you and God straight, you're not going to have no patience for anything else. Nothing else. So now if I'm in a, what do you call it? A whirlwind or a tornado of this chaotic situation. And I'm in here talking about some click your heels 3 times, Dorothy.
Right.
Because there's no place like home. Like we out here in these streets, like going in Kansas, like, oh no, this is not it. Singing, I don't know, defying gravity.
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
not. But it's all right. But we put ourselves in these situations sometimes.
Yeah,
you can simplify it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know, with the title, like, Don't Stress, God's Ready to Talk When You Are. Also, what I took away from that, you got to find the space so God can talk to you.
Yes.
And that was me on the flip side, not the concern that I can't find him or he's not there, is when you going to find time for daddy? When you going to sit still? When you going to quiet the noise so you can actually commune with him? That's awesome. Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, I was going to say recently, I remember I've got tasked with this because these are the things that happen, right? As you age, ladies, calm down. Everyone, it's okay, right? When you start going through like this whole postpartum, not postpartum, postpartum, that's one thing. I've been postmenopausal, and then your perimenopausal situation, your brain becomes more scattered.
Yes, who am I?
Yeah, and excuse me. Your brain becomes more scattered and you're trying to hold on to a thought, or you're trying to make sense of all of your coping mechanisms that worked for you before. So I had this down, like sitting still, and now I'm finding it more difficult to like get my mind focused and, get my heart in the right heart posture to be able to receive God, because we're always changing and we're always evolving into something different, into being more and more even closer into God's image and his likeness. I just find it interesting that it still is changing. And I love that. Like, I love the fact that now I have the tools and now I just have to adapt or even pivot again. You know what I mean? And even being okay with that. So like, if I look at one of the concepts in the journal, there are these moments that we call grace care moments.
Yes.
And giving yourself graces is like a thing, right? Like, I gotta be okay that I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. I'm okay with that. And guess what? We're all gonna learn together.
All right.
And it's gonna
that's
be
so
right.
good, because like in your book, when you lean into that, it's almost like learning a new skill. When you're learning a new skill set, it's so exciting, it's refreshing, you feel alive, you feel rejuvenated. And it's the same thing when you're growing and you're maturing, and you just lean into that, as opposed to be like, this feels different, and I'm afraid of something new.
Yeah.
Find a whole new world in there.
A whole new world, and knowing that you're not doing it by yourself.
Exactly. We're out here.
Out here.
Okay. We see you.
Out here.
We see you. So for the woman listening who feels stuck because she's afraid of what she can't control, how does she start building that confidence to trust God even when she doesn't know what's next?
Trust is a hard one. I think I think we are expected to just trust God.
Yeah.
You know, it's
like it's supposed to come naturally.
Like it's supposed to come natural. Mm-hmm. Like it's supposed to be, oh, well, he's all knowing,
Mm-hmm.
all powerful, all seeing God. Shouldn't you trust him? He created you. But
what if you've never seen that in the natural?
That's what I'm saying, right? Never seen it in the natural. Haven't been able to trust anyone in your real life that's tangible, like someone we can touch right here in front of you. So how do you start to build trust with our Heavenly Father? I think you have to do it the same way you would develop trust with someone who you do trust on this planet. It's got to start small. And if I were going to give people a piece of advice, I would say start journaling the things that God shows up for you, no matter how small and how insignificant it may seem, because you need to be able to go back. There's this song called If He Did It Before, right? He'll do it again. And sometimes we forget what he's already done. And if we can go back to those moments, then it can remind us, and then that helps us to develop even another area where we can trust God.
Absolutely.
But don't beat yourself if you're not just trusting him automatically. Like he's got to earn that trust. The same way we trust anyone else, but we have to be open and willing enough and to be vulnerable to start to allow him to trust. Like we talked about carrying all the bags. If we're so used to carrying everything ourselves, we're so used to managing it all,
right?
Multitaskers as we are, must be nice. Right. But if I don't give him opportunities to be able to build that trust, then I'm going to be carrying the bags for the rest of my life.
That's good. So good. You bought me my first notebook, my first gratitude notebook.
Okay.
And that really did help. Because then sometimes you just overlook.
You overlook it.
Some instances where it's like, wow, he's been there the whole time. That is so good. What a conversation. Again, Quiana, I mean, we are just unpacking so much. But today, just to really dig in, to truly see what it means to just expect the unexpected. It's not something to fear, but it gives you an opportunity to grow. It gives you an opportunity to shift or pivot, like you said, and lean into God in ways that we never imagined. Quiana, your openness and again, your wisdom, it just reminds us that the moments we don't plan for are often the ones that shape us the most.
Yeah.
So thank you for keeping it real again and helping us see life surprises through a new lens. And for those of you listening today, if today's conversation spoke to you, I don't want you to stop the conversation here. Go to Amazon.com, pick up a copy of her book. Don't stress. God is ready to talk when you are. And make sure you follow it up with her 30-day guided journal, a perfect way to start creating that space for your own conversations with God. So again, we want to make sure that you stay connected, stay tuned with Quiana on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok. You can find her at Quiana L Gibson Ministries for more encouragement. And of course, our new community, we really want to hear from you. We want to know what your takeaways are from some of the things that resonated with you or just some of the challenges that you're having in your life. And again, we just want to thank you for spending time with us. Yes. We hope today's episode gave you a fresh perspective and some real tools to walk in faith and confidence, even when things don't go as planned. All right. Well, be sure to tune in next time. And until then, stay open, stay expected, and remember, sometimes the detour leads you exactly where you need to be. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.